Hey, Michael Church, Crawl Space Ninja, and I am here with Dusty Jameson of Inspector Cluseau, and he is a home inspector here in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's been doing this 17 years. And today we're going to talk about why mold should be removed as part of the mold remediation process. Stay tuned. So if you're new to Crawl Space Ninja, we talk about waterproofing, encapsulation, indoor air quality, and mold. We hope you'll subscribe to our channel, ring that notifications bell, and follow us on Facebook. So we've got an interesting topic to discuss.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of people in our industry think that mold remediation is leaving all of the insulation in the floor joists and just squirting some kind of mold killer on the joists. And you and I have been back and forth about this, and we've even pointed each other in some different directions to check out different things from the manufacturers of these disinfectants all the way to what the EPA and different organizations say. So share with our viewers from a home inspection standpoint what you're running into and the correction to that.
Yeah, so the main issue, there's several, but one of the main things for us is that we are there for a snapshot.
Right.
We did not see the house a year before, typically not going to see the house a year later. We're there for a 2 to 3 hour period. So when we go into the crawl space and we see mold, fungus, microbial growth, however we want to call it, when we see that, that's showing us that the crawl space has had some sort of humidity issue, and we don't know if that's been cleaned or treated.
That's right. So you don't know if that's an old problem?
Nope.
So you can't date the mold by looking at it. Is that what you're telling me?
You can't date the mold, and a lot of times, sometimes you can see that there's a treatment that's been applied, but what spores were there prior to that treatment? What came up after? Did any? Even if somebody gives us proof of a treatment, we're still left with the visual indicators, and we don't know if it's grown or if it's not.
Right. So you've got some sellers that basically paid a company to go in to take care of a mold problem in a crawl space. And then you come in representing the buyers.
Right.
And you have to give the buyer the best information for their family because they're the ones that is inheriting whatever problem or potential problem that is there.
Yes, sir.
So if you go in and you see fuzz all over the joists and the subfloor, what do you tell the buyers that you're representing?
Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is to figure out, have they addressed the humidity problem?
Right.
Have there been any repairs performed to address elevated humidity levels, or are we still looking at a vented crawl space and still have some moisture content that's there? So that's the first step. Next step then is to advise them what we would suggest to do with that mold growth, which is remove it.
Sure.
There are different reasons why you want to remove it, but that's going to be our progression is, have we corrected the source of the moisture? Once that's corrected, we want to see the mold spores gone.
You wrote an article that I'm going to put a link down below about that names some manufacturers and different things like that. But I assume that, talking about humidity, if you're looking around that crawl space and there's not a dehumidifier, you can only assume that the humidity is not being controlled.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
So the other thing is, a lot of these companies that have treated these crawl spaces incorrectly, they're giving you a lot of pushback.
Yep.
And they're trying to tell you that what they did is a legitimate process in doing that. But if you look at the manufacturers and how they recommend their product be applied, they're not applying the product correctly. Is that right?
Exactly. The blog post that you had mentioned, I went through and pulled up information from the EPA, the CDC, Building Science Corporation, and what was the?
Shockwave.
Shockwave.
Right.
I actually pulled up their application instructions. All 4 sources said you must remove the mold. You have to apply chemical to a clean surface.
That's right. You can't just squirt the joists.
No.
Leave the insulation in place.
The CDC actually said that even if you have dead mold spores on the framing, if those become airborne, there are people who are sensitive to dead mold spores.
That's
so
right.
if you don't remove it, you can still have sensitivity issues.
That's right. From an indoor air quality perspective, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize this, but dust mites are the #1 cause of asthma among children, but it's not the live dust mite. It's actually their fecal matter and their carcasses that causes the most problem and the most allergic reaction among kids.
Yeah.
So just because something's dead doesn't mean it can't affect you.
Exactly. So if you leave that mold spore on the wood, then you just gave new mold a place to grow.
That's a good point. So if there's a water leak in the future, if your ice maker leaks or your toilet flange leaks or whatever, it's got a good food source other than the wood but the mold itself becomes the dead mold
Yeah.
becomes a food source, right?
Correct, exactly.
I know we do soda blasting. There's some other ways that companies remove mold, like HEPA vacuuming and even dry ice blasting and things like that. But the point is that they must remove it
Correct.
prior to applying that disinfectant.
We generally leave the mold removal process up to the professional who's coming to do the work. Crawl Space Ninja is going to come in. We leave it to you to decide what method is going to be best for that application.
That's right. And keep in mind, these sellers, they are not wanting to spend money. I mean, I recently sold my house. I don't want to spend any money on doing it, and you wouldn't either, right? But what we recommend is that if you're the buyer and you're taking on that responsibility, maybe you negotiate some money to address that problem down the road. Because if you let the seller pay for it, then the seller gets to choose who does the work. And you have no say in that whatsoever.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that you as the buyer are protected and all that kind of thing to make sure that crawl space is healthy in the future.
Right.
Okay. So what else other than mold should they be addressing if they've got a mold problem? So we talked about humidity. What about standing water? Does that have an issue?
Anything that's going to make the humidity in the crawl space elevated needs to be addressed.
That's right.
Drainage and environment, just humidity, dew point and temperature, those things are the main sources for moisture in a crawl space.
That's right. So if you're seeing standing water or evidence of standing water, make sure you have an interior French drain system,
Correct.
sump pumps, all that kind of way to get that moisture out. Believe it or not, moisture is going to destroy your house, whether it's through bringing termites in, right?
Yep.
Don't they love?
They love wet food or wet wood.
They love wet wood.
Yeah.
Fungus, mold, wood rot fungus, whatever it is. So Dusty, I appreciate you coming in and talking about this. I wish that more home inspectors knew about this topic a little bit better. It seems that most of them won't even go into the crawl space. So appreciate you and your team willing to at least do that. So I'm Michael Church with Dusty Jamison of Inspector Cluseau, and I'm going to put a link to his channel down below. He's also got a YouTube channel.
Sir.
If you want to learn a little bit more about him and what he does, and we hope you make it a happy and blessed day. We'll see you later.